The night my stepfather threw me out. It was raining so hard I couldn't even hear my own crying. I was 17. No money, no phone battery, no place to go. And the last thing he said before slamming the door was, "You were a mistake your mother brought into this house." But he had no idea. One day he would stand in front of me again, not as the man who controlled my life, but as the man begging me for help. And that was his biggest mistake. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, which city and country are you watching this story from tonight? And if you've ever lived through pain like this, just know, you're not alone. This is Broken Then Powerful, where pain turns into power. My name is Ava, and for most of my life, I learned how to stay quiet, because in our house, silence was survival. My real father died when I was 6 years old. I barely remember his voice, only his laugh. A year later, my mother married Daniel. At first, he pretended to care. He bought me ice cream, called me kiddo, smiled in front of people. But behind closed doors, everything changed. He never hit me. Honestly, sometimes I wished he did, because bruises heal. But words crawl into your mind and stay there for years. You eat too much. You're useless. No wonder nobody likes you. Every single day. And my mother, she saw everything, but she stayed silent. That hurt more than anything. By 14, I stopped talking at dinner completely. I would sit there quietly while Daniel laughed with my mother and my little half-brother Mason. They looked like a real family, and I looked like the unwanted guest. One night, I accidentally dropped a glass plate while washing dishes. It shattered across the floor. Daniel walked into the kitchen slowly. Too slowly, that terrifying kind of calm. He stared at the broken pieces, then at me. "You break everything you touch." I remember freezing, my hands shaking, and then he said something I will never forget. "If your father were alive, he'd be ashamed of what you became." That sentence destroyed something inside me. I ran into my room and cried into my pillow so nobody would hear me. And that night, for the first time, I started believing him. At school, I became invisible. Oversized hoodies, headphones with no music playing, fake smiles. People think sadness looks dramatic. It doesn't. Sometimes it just looks tired. But they didn't know. I had one secret escape: writing. Every night after everyone slept, I would sit beside my tiny bedroom window and write stories on an old laptop my teacher gave me. Stories about girls who survived impossible things. Girls who lost everything, but still found themselves. I think, secretly, I was trying to save myself through those stories. One evening, my English teacher, Mrs. Carter, stopped me after class. "Ava, did you write this?" She held my essay in her hand. I nodded nervously, and then she said something nobody had ever said to me before. "You have a gift." I almost cried right there, because when you grow up unloved, even one kind sentence feels life-changing. Mrs. Carter started encouraging me. She helped me apply for a small national writing competition. I didn't tell anyone at home, especially Daniel, because people like him don't support dreams. They destroy them before they grow. Weeks later, an email arrived. I had won second place. There was scholarship money involved. Not enough to change my life completely, but enough to leave. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour, my hands trembling. Freedom. For the first time in years, freedom felt possible. But Daniel found out, and everything exploded. I came home one afternoon and saw my laptop snapped in half on the kitchen table. My heart dropped. Daniel sat there calmly drinking coffee. "You think you're smarter than this family now?" he asked. I couldn't breathe. "That laptop was mine," I whispered. "No," he snapped. "Everything in this house belongs to me." Then he threw the scholarship papers in my face. "You're not going anywhere." That night became the worst fight we ever had. I told him he couldn't control me forever, and suddenly, he lost it. "You are nothing," he screamed. "You hear me?" "Nothing!" My mother stood there crying silently, but she still said nothing. And then came the moment that changed my life forever. Daniel grabbed my backpack, opened the front door, and threw it outside into the storm. "Get out!" I looked at my mother, waiting, begging silently for her to stop him. She lowered her eyes. That was it. That was the moment I realized nobody was coming to save me. So I walked out, into the rain, alone. I slept at a bus station that night. Cold, hungry, terrified. I remember hugging my backpack like it was the only thing left in my world. But somewhere around 3 a.m., something strange happened. I stopped crying. Not because the pain disappeared, but because I was exhausted from being broken. And right there, under flickering station lights, I made a decision. If nobody wanted me, I would build a life so powerful they could never ignore me again. Not for revenge, not anymore, but because I deserved better. That was the night Ava died, and someone stronger was born. The next years were brutal. I worked everywhere. Coffee shops, bookstores, night cleaning jobs. I barely slept, but every free second. I wrote on buses, during lunch breaks, at 2 a.m. after exhausting shifts. I wrote through heartbreak, through loneliness, through hunger, because pain had become fuel. And slowly, life started changing. One article I wrote went viral online, then another. Publishers started emailing me. People connected with my stories because they were real, raw, human. By 26, I published my first book. It exploded. Millions of copies sold worldwide. Interviews, podcasts, magazine covers. People called me inspirational. But they didn't see the scars behind the success. They didn't know every achievement was built on nights I almost gave up. And then one day, everything came full circle. I was speaking at a charity event in Chicago. Hundreds of people attended. After my speech, I stayed behind signing books. That's when I noticed him, standing near the back wall. Older now, gray hair, tired eyes. Daniel. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. The same man who once threw me into the street was now standing quietly in a room filled with people applauding me. Life is strange like that. He walked toward me slowly, and suddenly, he didn't look powerful anymore. He looked small. "We need help," he said softly. I stared at him silently. Turns out, he lost his business years ago. Debt destroyed everything. My mother became sick, and Mason had dropped out of college. We didn't know who else to ask, he admitted. Funny word, for years. There was never a we, just him and me, broken, alone. I looked at Daniel carefully, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him, not even a little, because power changes when fear disappears. He expected anger, maybe revenge, maybe humiliation, but instead, I asked him one question. "Do you remember the night you kicked me out?" His eyes dropped instantly. Silence. Then I said quietly, "That night saved my life." He looked shocked, but it was true, because pain forced me to become someone stronger, someone independent, someone unstoppable. I realized something important that day. The people who break you often accidentally build the strongest version of you. I helped my mother with medical care. I helped Mason return to school, but Daniel, I gave him something else. Forgiveness, not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Because carrying hate for years is like drinking poison and hoping someone else suffers. And honestly, the greatest revenge is becoming happy after they tried to destroy you. Today, millions of people know my name, but the little girl crying quietly at the dinner table, she still lives inside me. And maybe a part of her always will. So if you're listening to this while feeling unwanted, ignored, broken, hear me carefully. Your current pain is not your final identity. Some people will try to convince you that you are worthless, because it gives them power over you. Don't believe them. People project their darkness onto others, especially those who secretly fear your potential. She stayed silent, but not weak. And one day, the same world that ignored her finally heard her voice. Maybe your life feels unfair right now. Maybe someone made you feel small for years. But they don't decide your ending. You do. And sometimes, the moment that feels like destruction is actually the beginning of your transformation. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what lesson touched your heart the most in this story? And which city and country are you watching from? We read every single comment. Also, if you have a real emotional story from your own life that you want the world to hear, a story of pain, betrayal, survival, or success, you can share it with us through our Gmail. Your story might become the next powerful video on Broken Then Powerful.
Subscribe to Broken Then Powerful for more stories like this, because some of the strongest people in the world were once the most broken.